Welcome to the Tea Mind. I'm Erica, and this is your weekly pause to put the kettle on, slow down, and reconnect with what really matters. Today, we are brewing courage and learning to start before we're ready, one imperfect cup at a time. For 3 years now, my podcast microphone sat on my desk, and I told myself I was preparing, but really, if I was really honest, I was actually hiding. I thought I was being really thorough, but what I was really doing was avoiding failure, maybe even also avoiding success. Because if I never started, I could never be judged. And if I kept refining the plan and honing those little details, I could stay safely in the world of potential where everything could still be perfect as long as I never started. But this perfectionism is a sneaky kind of fear. And it doesn't look like panic or paralysis, but it's more like that endless preparation. Maybe that's familiar to you, the constant researching, planning, refining, just again and again and again. So that's what today's episode is about. It's what happens when we pause to start before we feel ready. Because perfectionism can often hide behind some really good intentions. It sounds noble, you just want to get things right, but underneath there might be a quieter story playing out. You're scared of getting it wrong. And the thing about trying to do everything perfectly is it can trap you. It can look a lot like care, but actually it can be a form of control because you can trick yourself into feeling productive. You're busy researching. In my case, it was microphones, comparing logos, rewriting plans, and listening to jingles. I could waste hours listening to jingles, trying to find just the right one. But deep down, there was no movement, there was no action forward, no friction, and no life to it. I was just editing a project that didn't exist yet. And every week I would make tea, I'd open my notebook, and every week I'd find a new reason not to begin. And I told myself it wasn't fear, it was standards, just trying to get it right. But in actual truth, I was scared of creating something messy. I was scared of being vulnerable and putting myself out there. And this is where the metal element of autumn comes in. In traditional Chinese philosophy, the metal element, which relates to the season of autumn, gives us precision, structure, and high standards. And if it's a slightly out of balance, it can lead to perfectionism. And it's meta element is that energy that helps us really cut through clutter and refine what really matters to us. So when it's balanced, it is really beautiful. But when it's slightly out of balance, that meta element can become a little bit rigid and we can find ourselves tightening and gripping onto things and forever polishing instead of actually publishing things. Metal element says perfect it before you share it, but growth says share it. And then that's how you get better and better. So for years, trying to get a podcast off the ground, I lived in that imbalance and I thought I was protecting my vision, but really I was just stopping my growth. And here's the thing, when you over polish, you stop feeling alive and you stop experiencing things, and eventually that creativity starts to suffer under the weight of your own expectations. So if you recognize this, perhaps you've got some half-finished ideas gathering dust on your desk somewhere, or something that you've just always wanted to do, but you keep just thinking about it and honing details rather than taking action, then just be aware that you're not lazy and you're not broken. You're just perhaps scared, scared that starting something means letting go of a little bit of control. But control and creation don't coexist. You have to make a choice and you have to choose one. So let me take you back to the early days of the T Mind podcast. I had the name, I had the concept, I had done all the research, I had the color scheme, I had everything. I even had the tea pairings for each episode, but I had no recordings. I'd spent months and months comparing microphones, whether it was Blue Yeti or Rode. I'd read every forum, every review. I'd made lots of spreadsheets of pros and cons, and I told myself I was doing it properly. But actually, I was scared to start because the moment I pressed record, my dream would become something real and therefore inevitably imperfect. But eventually, I got tired of my own excuses. And one day, I made a cup of tea. It was yellow gold oolong. fittingly enough, a nice oolong tea to help support the meta element. And I decided I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to record one episode. No scripts, no fancy introduction, no editing. Just me, my voice, and my cup of tea. And the irony is that by that stage, I'd actually lost the mic that I'd spent so long researching. And the first recording was in person, and I had to do an emergency dash to the shops for the only mic that I could find. And yeah, the sound wasn't perfect. There was background noise. My voice shook a little. There was so many things wrong with it, but it was real. And that single act of starting imperfectly changed everything. And it allowed me to move forward and grow because every week after that, I've learned something new and I've honed every little detail. It's still so far to go, but at least I'm putting myself out there. I'm being brave and I'm learning every single week. And it was that act of taking action that got over that freeze, that paralysis. And it's the repetition, the consistently showing up that's helped to take away any sort of friction. And just practice, practice, practice. Just like brewing tea, you can read every instruction, the water temperature, the leaf weight, you can measure it perfectly, time the steeping time, but you only really learn the act by doing it, by the feeling you get, by the taste, and by showing up to the ritual imperfectly time and time again. So these days, when I feel myself tightening and when the urge to learn the art of it by doing, rather than by actually learn the art by actually sort of reading rather than by doing, I sit back and I just make some tea, and it becomes a little signal to myself to let go, to release. As the leaves just gently unfurl in my teacup, it reminds me that clarity doesn't come from control, but it's all about letting go. Metal, when it's nicely balanced, is elegant, it's grounded, and it's precise. But when you hold on to things too tightly, you just stop that natural flow of life. And you're caught between planning and doing, between thinking and between actually doing it. So I encourage you this week, before your next cup of tea, to just have a little pause and consider what's one small step you can take today, even if it's messy, to move a project or something forward. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real, to be true for you. So the tea routine that I invite you to do today um, is all about balancing your inner metal with a touch of flow. So begin by choosing your tea. So I would suggest a nice oolong tea, any one that you like. I'm having yellow gold oolong, orange oolong supreme's another good one, just whatever one sits comfortably with you. And oolongs are an amazing category of tea, which sit between black and green teas, and they symbolize that balance between structure and surrender. So as your tea brews quietly today, just sit and notice where you're holding tension. Where in your body are you holding tension? Maybe it's in your shoulder, maybe it's in your jaw or your mind. And just let the steam gently soften it. And let your breath slowly lengthen as you breathe in calm and breathe out any tension in your body. And then just ask yourself, what am I overthinking? Where am I waiting to feel ready? And then write down just one small step that you could take today. Just one small step. Maybe it's sending the email, maybe it's recording the introduction, or pressing publish on a draft that you've been tinkering with for far too long. And don't analyze it, just perfect it and make a choice, make a decision. And then finally, sip your tea slowly and just notice how it feels to take action on something and to wash away that any need for perfection. So I'm curious, what could you start today, even before you feel ready? Maybe it's that email that you've been avoiding for months. Might be looking at your bank balance that you've have got the fear over and you know that you really should be looking at it. Or maybe it's that creative idea that you've been refining for months. Whatever it is, just know that perfection keeps you waiting, but taking some sort of action will help you grow and help you move forward. And when you start, however imperfectly, then you invite life back into the equation. So as you sip your tea this week, remember the leaves can't open until they meet the hot water. and you can't grow until you begin. That's it for today. I hope something landed, I hope something lifted, and if it did, share it with someone who needs a pause too. If you enjoyed this, you'll love the T-Mind Substack, where the kettle's always on and we can connect more deeply. Until next time, stay present, sip slowly, and thanks for listening.